Started on our session. Next slide. As you look at our agenda for today, a few reminders about our norms when we're together online. There is a big scheduled turnout today. So when we're in this main room and you're taking in information, you're welcome to have your camera on or off. We do ask that you have your microphones off the whole time. But today you'll notice there's several opportunities for breakouts. And during those times, we do ask that you have your camera on, your microphone on, and you're fully participating. And so, our team is going to be joining you in those breakouts, not to make sure you're on task, but instead because we want to hear about the great things that are going on at your schools and in your lives. And so we will be sometimes in one the whole time, and other times we'll pop in between so we can visit as many. If we were together, we'd be circulating between the tables where you were all talking. And so in the same way, we'll be popping into your breakout so we can touch base with all of you and get to know you better. These slides will be available on Schoology as well as the recording by the end of the week. They should be on there, and we'll send out an email to share those links with you. Also, as a reminder, if this is your first Zoom online out of school special with us, we take attendance by the exit ticket at the end of the session. So please make sure that you stay until the end and complete that exit ticket so that we can give you credit for being here on MyPDE. It's the only way we can know who's here and not, because people enter from a number of different ways. All right, next slide. We will dive right into our first breakout there. In our community connection, we will have about 8 minutes to chat about what is one way you engaged in the outdoors at some point this summer. So there's some pictures there of some of our teammates doing some cool outdoor learning together over the summer. It doesn't have to be an educational opportunity. It could be reading in your hammock in your backyard this week. So we will be in random breakouts, and we will bring you back in about 8 minutes. Able to make as part of that. Next slide. So today we're going to be thinking ahead to your Get2Green school year and really framing it in 3 big questions. Who is going to be doing this work? Where might the work be done? And what are you actually going to do with those people and places that you put together? So to start us off in thinking about who, we have our resource teacher from the Central Community, Erica Thompson.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you all. So as Chrissy said, we're going to focus on the who for forming a working team first. Next slide. If you had the opportunity to already join our Get2Green kickoff that happened in July last week, then you had the opportunity, to look at our school engagement toolkit already. But if you haven't, then this is going to be kind of an intro for you. We're going to be really jumping into how you can build whole school engagement, keeping students at the focus of that while maximizing your student engagement. So we kind of created this flower-like structure here, and we're going to dive into 4 out of these 5 categories and give you some details that'll help you really focus on that who today. Next slide. So our first area that we're going to think through is the working group. And you can see right at the top, the forefront and the focus is those students. So everything that we do, we really want to try to keep it student-led, student-centered, student-focused, have them engaged and involved in the process of the decision-making as much as possible. So that's where they're at the front, right there in center, to keep us focused on them. Another really important part and member of your working group is your administration point of contact, or your APOC. Every one of you has one, and so it's somebody on your administration team, and they have self-designated themselves as somebody who wants to support you throughout this journey along your way and be a part of your working group. We're going to do our best through different communication that we have with you this year and CCing them on any type of communication that we have between each other so that they're aware of Get2Green initiatives, the work that's happening at your school, and so that they can continue to support you in different projects and all of the different goals that you have for your year. Also along the top, you can see is your Get2Green resource teacher. So we are all here to support you throughout the year, through the highs and lows. We're always here to help answer your questions and point you in the right direction. So just know that we're all a part of your working group as well. Then you can see the rest of the circle for the working group has different members that are part of your school community, such as the director of student activities if you're at a high school. And then we have both the instructional staff and the operational staff. Somebody I really want to point out today, and that operational staff is your finance tech or your AA. So you're going to be dealing with $2,500 in your Get to Green budget this year. And part of your commitment is to working towards creating goals and thinking through what you want to purchase in order to reach those goals with your students and your working team. And a big person behind making that happen is going to be your finance tech and your AA. So in order to have them be on board with you, really forming up that communication, making sure they're aware of what your goals are for the year, and also being aware of any deadlines that they have for you. And the last one to point out is your community partnerships. So you might already have some formed, or you might be thinking about, well, who can I involve that is outside of our school-based community that we really want to have be a part of and be an extension of our working group. Next slide. The other piece to think through with the who is the structure, and that's kind of the how you're meeting with your group. So it kind of ranges all the way from an individual class that you might be working with, all the way up to having a whole school event where you're engaging everyone in your school community, all of the grade levels, as many teachers and parents and community members as possible. And you can see there's a lot of different structures that you can have. Maybe you have multiple that are occurring within your school building at the same time. You might have a whole grade level that's working on a project or an action, or you might have one advisory group that's working and is really dedicated towards your Get to Green efforts. Another one I really wanted to point out is that you might have an existing SCA at your school, and you really can think about how to work with the students that are already a part of that leadership group. And or some schools have created a student Get to Green ambassador leadership position, and that might be a structure that you want to consider on really getting those students involved to get in that leadership opportunity and that ability to meet more frequently. So those again are some different structures that might work for you, and a lot of Get to Green leaders have found successes with having multiple different options for these different types of structures, and no structure is better than another, and you get to figure out what works best for you. Next slide. The meeting cadence is another one that varies greatly from one school to the next. Something I'll point out is that project-driven meeting cadence. So if you're working on a specific project with your group, with your working group, you might be meeting really frequently to work on that project, get your goals in action, form your budget. And then as you're finalizing that project and you're reflecting, then you might go back to meeting less frequently. If you're somebody who likes to have a set meeting cadence and you're like, nope, I want to meet weekly and we're meeting this day every week, or we're meeting the third Thursday of every month, or whatever that structure is for your meeting cadence, if you want to have that more consistent, that gets to be something that you and your working group get to decide, or maybe you decide what's best for you and whoever's on your team. The other one I'll point out is that seasonal idea. So some working groups have found that it's more successful to come in more often as a working group during the seasons where you might be doing outdoor planting more often. So meeting more frequently during the fall and the spring and less frequently during other times. But again, these are going to maybe fluctuate for you throughout the year depending on what projects you're working on. Next slide. And the last kind of area to think through of those webs that are part of the school engagement toolkit is the communication. So a big piece in having a successful working group is thinking, how are you communicating with one another? And how are you understanding what your next steps are, where you're going from where you are, what are your goals? Again, really thinking about how the students are going to become involved in this. So some ways that we found that the students have had success in the communication efforts is being on the morning announcements or a news show. Maybe they're helping with creating your bulletin boards and your posters. They might, if you have a yearbook club or a school newspaper, be able to highlight your efforts in that club. And then something that we'll focus a little bit more in a moment is having a Schoology group. If you have a Schoology group, then the students communicate with one another. You can talk back and forth with them. You can post resources or events that are upcoming. So that's another great way to communicate. For you, you might also have a social media, and if you're active on there, then you can tag us and you can communicate and really celebrate the efforts that you have put in at your school. You might want to be able to attend a staff meeting, a PTO, PTA meeting, or another club meeting to get the word out there, highlight what you're doing. You could also attend different advisory or morning meetings in order to talk with different classes. If possible, you can get the message and news out there by highlighting it in the parent or staff newsletters. And last way is really thinking again about that communication outside of your school. So communicating with your external partners, with us, with Get2Green, and also with your pyramid schools that are nearby. Next slide. Here's that Schoology example. I know a lot of you have Schoology different groups. And here's one from Wolf Trap. Melissa Bacchus let us show this as an example. And you again can see that they've posted events and that students are engaging in communication with her. She's able to talk to them about a permission slip and some resources that she's posted. So if this is something that's interesting for you, we found that students like to engage in this type of communication method and might be something that you want to consider for your green team, for your working group this year. Next slide. All of this, everything that we just kind of really quickly talked through, but again, you'll have access to the school engagement toolkit, is to help everyone move along this Get2Green continuum. So thinking through who you're working with, when you're meeting, what are your goals, how are you communicating with one another, is helping you get from that 1, 2, 3 up to that 4, 5, so that you can continue to engage as many students, as many people in your community as possible, and work towards integrating this into your school culture. Next slide, please. The last thing that we'll take a look at right here is you might be thinking, well, how am I going to get more people involved? How am I going to have recruitment? How am I going to have buy-in? You'll get these slides, so I know it's a lot to look at on one slide right now, but these are some ideas that some people have found success in, whether it's presenting at a staff meeting or forming a staff committee, maybe again collaborating with another club that already exists, and so that you're finding an existing club and working alongside them to reach your goals. These are just different ways that you might consider having recruitment and buy-in if that's something that you need in order to shift your school culture, considering Get2Green. Next slide. So now we're going to invite you to think through everything that we just kind of chatted about in a breakout. You're going to be thinking through the question, who should I invite to my green team or to your working groups? Thinking about, so sorry, who has been on your team? Who are you considering inviting this year, and how have you gotten buy-in? You're going to be in a breakout room and they're about to be posted to see. You're going to pick between elementary, middle, and high school, depending on where you work and what best suits you. We're asking you to keep it to 5 people or less. So if you see that there's 5 people in a group already, then hop into a different breakout. All right, so the breakout rooms are getting posted. And if you scroll down to the screen that just popped up, you'll see elementary, middle, and high. Just pop into one of those. And again, we're keeping it to 5 people or less. So if you already see 5 people, then just hop into another room.
I can't see the groups that are.
So if you click on your screen,
including our climate, our ever-changing climate, our native trees and plants, our wildlife, including birds and pollinators and beneficial insects, water features, woodlands and meadows, and all of those are in very near reach to all of us. So they offer ample opportunities for our students to make important curriculum connections through hands-on experiences, as well as creating a sense of place and connecting learning and connecting to learning and to one another. So during this next section, I just invite you to just keep in the back of your mind where you spend your days with your students on your school campus and do some reflection on some obvious destinations for outdoor learning and some you may have overlooked. Next slide, please. Next
Karen, your
slide. Thank you.
audio is a little bit garbled. Can you try to
Oh.
turn off your video and see if that helps?
Turn off the video.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
We won't see your beautiful face, but everyone, your
Yeah,
picture.
that's okay. Is that better?
Perfect. Yes,
It is? Oh,
it is so
okay,
far.
great. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to ask you all to do, we're going to do a little one of those waterfall exercises, and I'm going to ask you to place in the chat when I say go. What do you think of when you hear the term outdoor learning? Just a word or a phrase would be great. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You see lots of engaging and fun in nature, gardens, connecting. Some of the features that you have at your schools. SEL, nature walks. I love that there's so much fun involved in it. Peaceful connection, bird observations, environmental change, mandalas, peace and joy, cross-curricular, great. And all of the above, excitement. Yes, there is a lot of that. Fresh air. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that. Okay. It certainly is all of those things and more for sure. And I'm glad you are all having those wonderful experiences with your students. It's what it's really all about. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to talk about assessing your outdoor spaces and how you'll use them. Sometimes we tend to think about the spaces we wish we had rather than the spaces we already do have. And I know that can be a challenge for some of us, especially when we visit other places and maybe they are further along the path than we are, and we're just getting started and it seems daunting and overwhelming, but it needn't be that. So, I've kind of thought about this myself and looked in all the schools that I've visited. There are both of these on school campus. There are formal spaces. We have lots of schools that have courtyard gardens that have been there for a long period of time. There are schools that are getting brand new spaces and that haven't been used at all. And now they are challenged with how to dedicate that space and how they're going to use them. We have schools that have had R3 plantings. We have schools that would like to have R3 plantings. And thinking about how you can incorporate having those assets on your school grounds and using them to make connections in your curriculum. They can be as small as container gardens placed on a patio or in a courtyard or even at the front of your building. And then I would venture to guess all of our schools have lots of informal spaces, whether they're wooded areas or pathways, even small groves of trees, perhaps some trails and fields. Even a walkway along some areas adjacent to the school can provide opportunities for observations and exploration. And thinking about the ways you might use these spaces. First of all, these spaces are and should be available to all of our students. And thinking about how to make that accessibility part of the way you consider your spaces is super important. And so I invite you to think about the activities you might engage in. And some of them I'm sure are going to come to you naturally, whether it's reading or journaling, maybe doing some art and including doing nature mandalas, doing observation and documentation and record keeping, data collection, having morning meetings or club meetings, having a small sit spot or an area as a take a break spot. Our school grounds are wonderful resources for conducting scavenger hunts and doing team building exercises. And they're also wonderful places for hosting events. I see more and more schools starting to take advantage of the wonderful spaces they have to host things like their green flag ceremonies. Lots of schools are using them to do Earth Day activities. And hopefully, you might be thinking about using some of your outdoor spaces to host some back to school activities. I always wanted to do an arts in the garden event. I mean, we go to public gardens to hear music and observe art. I think we could do that on our own school grounds. So I'd invite you to, if you have hosted an event or you have a novel way that you've used your outdoor space, I'd invite you to share it in the chat. We are all about sharing with one another the things that have worked for us with our students on our school grounds. And if there was something that I didn't mention, I'd love to know about it. So next slide, please. So for those schools that perhaps their space is undeveloped or in the process of being thought about, or maybe you have a courtyard that's under construction, I would ask you to think about how those spaces are currently being used and what assets you might include or what things you can incorporate to encourage greater use. And so I pose some of these questions just to tuck in the back of your mind. Thinking about your outdoor spaces, what features make them unique? And how could you highlight or emphasize the benefit of these spaces? Do these spaces support large or small groups, or maybe both? Do they offer all of your students accessibility? And if not, how could we support you in helping you make that accessibility possible? How close are your spaces to classrooms and bathrooms and shelter in the event of sudden inclement weather? I know sometimes our schools have areas that are a little bit far from the classroom and maybe they don't get used as frequently, but you could plan around it. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but they offer these great opportunities for observation if you do some planning around weather and time. Wi-Fi accessibility is another thing to take into consideration depending on the activity you might plan. And are there some distinct seasonal events that you can make an effort to capture or schedule a celebration around? Perhaps you might think of doing an anniversary of a tree planting for Arbor Day or a harvest day. Think about how the frequency of use. Do you see your spaces being used a lot? Not so much? How can you get and encourage others to take advantage of what is right at your fingertips? What kinds of improvements might you need help with garnering in order to get that, that buy-in? And oftentimes I know that the biggest challenges are time. So again, scheduling time into your day and lessons, it can be a challenge, but regular visits to the garden can build a routine as anticipation to engage in activities becomes more the norm, and you're spending less time on preparing students for what to encounter when they go outdoors. The other is scheduling maintenance. This is a perfect time of year to be thinking about that. I know a lot of our spaces can become overwhelming to be maintained, but if you start thinking about scheduling maintenance ahead of time and keeping them maintained throughout the academic year, it keeps them safe and inviting. And a periodic assessment, especially at the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year, so that you can prepare for shutting gardens and outdoor spaces down, will help you to schedule those events in advance and also help you to get a jump on submitting work requests and DC 407s for any work that you have identified that needs attention. You might think about some of your spaces for special uses too, and just designating a small area. It doesn't have to be that large, but someplace that can be used by multiple groups, whether it's a reading spot or a meeting spot or what have you. You can think about encouraging that use and encouraging scheduling around it. It seems to me that when schools start using spaces. It attracts a lot of attention, which is a good thing. We want more of our students and teachers engaging in those outdoor spaces. Think about using the eco school pathways and curriculum connections to highlight a particular time over the course of your academic year that you can highlight being outdoors and how you can use the spaces. And your students probably will come up with lots of ideas that they would have to engage in those spaces as well. The other thing I would suggest too, in terms of planning and making it easier to use your outdoor spaces, is to make materials such as gardening materials, art materials, or any science equipment, whether it's weather related or experimental related tools, easy to access for all members of your school community. Let them know what you have available for them to use. Take advantage of the lending kits that Get2Green has made available for you for both classroom time, after school specials, and even special events. And sometimes increasing awareness to some of our wonderful outdoor spaces can be just as simple as taking some time to cut across from one doorway to the next across a courtyard as you're going about moving from one class to the next, and just having that time outdoors to be mindful in your outdoor space could be just a great entry point in terms of using that area. Next slide, please. So the big picture, I'm a big proponent of thinking in terms of longevity and sustainability of programs on our school grounds. I know many of us have inherited spaces that include projects that were started by people who came before us, and we have no idea what they were even about, and we have to kind of reconfigure them. And so for us moving forward, I think it behooves us and for the people who come after us to really think about how what we are doing in our outdoor spaces is going to continue after this year's students move on, and perhaps after we move on as well. It's okay to start small and dream big, and get to know the space that you're going to be working in, get to know it over time. Observe the seasonal changes, observe how, where the wet spots are, where the flooding is, all these things before you start embarking on a project. It will really pay you a lot of dividends later on. So Get2Green, I know many of you are aware, we've developed a range of materials to support you, including the garden guide, and that was developed explicitly for our schools. There's a lot of material that we have developed that's available to you on Schoology. And of course, the Get2Green team, the resource teachers, myself, and Chrissy, Ali, and Candace are available to answer questions and put you in touch with valuable resources, including each other. I think one of the most exciting things that we are witnessing is that our Get2Green leaders have gained so much experience and expertise and are more than willing to share it with one another. And we love making that possible for you to connect with one another. So these outdoor spaces too, in terms of planning, before you embark on a big project, the planning is really, really important. You want to make sure that whatever project you're embarking on is going to align with the use that you've agreed upon, so that everybody understands what's happening in these spaces. And it also enables you to keep these spaces maintained and in good working order for years to come. So your efforts to create a team, it's just wonderful to hear how many different parts of your community are getting engaged in this, the custodial staff, your specialists and whatnot. It will help take the burden off of any one of you as a leader to maintain these spaces. You should be able to share the responsibility for the use, the care, and the maintenance. And I think that as we move forward, I'm hoping that that will be the case, that will become less burdensome for any one individual. The other thing I wanted to throw out there too is whether or not your spaces allow access to the broader community, because this becomes a factor in your planning too. It can have both positive and negative aspects. There's advantages and disadvantages, and I would ask you to think about those spaces and whether or not you've encountered one or the other. I know some schools deal with issues such as security and vandalism. Other schools have issues around access to garden spaces when school is not in session. So moving forward, taking those into account, and thinking about the way that you can meet those challenges, better to do it in the plannings time that you have available, especially right now in the beginning of the school year. And next slide, please. And seasonal considerations. We want to encourage you to be out in your outdoor spaces all year long. I know there's a tendency when winter comes around that we're going to just hunker down and just forget about it until spring rolls around. And take it from somebody who knows. There's a lot going out in those gardens during the winter, waiting for you upon your return. And I'm speaking of cool weather weeds. But there are a lot of wonderful observations that you can share with your students, a lot of curricular connections that are going on as the seasons change. And they provide you wonderful opportunities to discover things that you might not know about your school campus. It helps you stay engaged with those spaces through the season, and it helps you to keep an eye on anything that might need some attention, and also helps you to think about what you might plan for next. So take some time at the start and the end of the school year to do an assessment of the condition of those spaces and think about what may need attention to make them the most usable during the academic year. Some of the things I just want to point out, because I've heard about it from a lot of schools, be on the lookout for things like poison ivy, wasp nests, bees nests, things that really require some attention on the part of facilities, and get those requests for attention to them in as soon as possible. And the other thing I wanted to toss out there was mulch. I know we have a tendency to think about putting mulch down in the spring, but for any of you who have R3 gardens, putting mulch down in the fall is actually recommended. The last thing I'm going to say about this is creating a seasonal task list specific to the needs of your school. And in September, we're going to have an opportunity to dive into this a little bit more deeply using some of the resources we have and spending some time to allow you to come up with a plan that's specific to your school. So if you are interested in learning more about how to do that, think about signing up for the September PD. And the last slide. So I know we've had some referrals to the Get2Green Fund, your $2,500 budget for this upcoming year, which is a wonderful thing to have, but it does come with a lot of pondering and decisions about what your needs might be. So there's been a lot of work put into streamlining the document so that all of the information, or as much information that we could think of based on what we've heard from feedback, is there in the document to allow you to know, to answer some of your questions, to give you suggestions for things that you might be interested in purchasing. And the things that are there are recommendations. You are not wedded to anything that is on that list, but I will say that the things that are included have pretty much stood the test of time. And so they're there because they are recommended. And we encourage you to share with us anything that you've come across in your travels that you think would benefit other schools as well. And I will add that assessing your needs and putting these requests in early is going to be beneficial for a number of reasons. I have no idea what the supply chain is going to look like this year. So I think if you are looking to outfit your outdoor spaces with any materials, the sooner you get those assessments done and those orders in, I think the better off you will be. And feel free to work with your resource teachers, your finance tech throughout the year. Certainly call upon me. I'm always available to help you out with those, and look forward to working with you all in the coming year. And now,
All right, thank you, Karen. Next slide.
you're welcome.
So now that you've had the opportunity to engage in thinking about who might be your allies in Get2Green work and how you're going to do student action at your school, and thought about the space considerations that you have, and we know that looks different at all 200 schools. Our last section is to really think about what you're going to do with your students. And students are really, you've heard it again and again, the key driver. Get2Green is not just about saving the world. That is all actually like a amazing byproduct of the work that we do. Instead, our main objective and goal in our mission and vision is to engage students in meaningful work around environmental stewardship. So what might that look like at your school? Next slide. First, and it was like there was a plant in the chat already. What resources already exist? Because we know that as teachers, often you're asked to do more and more and more with nothing ever being taken off of your plate. And we don't want Get2Green to be that for you. We want it to be a joyful way that we're engaging students in learning. And so there are some resources that already exist that can help you along that way. And you will get to dive into these later on in our time together today. First, the curriculum connections. In science, in elementary school, K through 6, and several of our high school classes, there are opportunities for environmental stewardship and outdoor learning already embedded in the curriculum. You'll see that little picture of a tree. And it used to be a more stylized tree, and over time, for accessibility reasons, it will become the tree emoji. And we have a document there linked with the science connections from kindergarten up through high school, quarter by quarter. Where can you engage your students in this work that fits naturally into your curriculum? And for a lot of those, it's lesson by lesson. Unit 2, lesson 3, this is what you'll do with your students. The state has also recognized that there's a need for these connections. We're being asked to come up with an environmental literacy plan, and we are ahead of the game because you're already doing the work at schools. And so this document from the state takes every subject from kindergarten through high school, including PE and math and anything that you might be teaching, and suggests schoolyard correlations, ways that you can address standards in an outdoor learning environment. The other one that you see in that right-hand corner is brand new. This year, our summer curriculum development project looked at the benchmark units, which is the language arts curriculum for elementary. And within the existing lesson guides, you will now see some considerations for work. Last year, it was kind of a piecemeal, separate documents. For example, if you did advanced academics, you might have had to look at 2 documents to find a way to integrate them together. You'll see now, instead on the big benchmark guide and then daily, you'll see that little tree, and it will give you a suggestion for, instead of doing a noun walk, talking about nouns in your classroom, how might you take your students out into the schoolyard to engage them in finding nouns, for example. So really be looking for that little picture of a tree in your curriculum. The last is we recognize that taking students outside can be a barrier for many teachers. It's intimidating when classroom management is a major component in our teaching lives. And so we've also created this resource, Best Practices for Teaching Outdoors, that goes through both logistical, physical things that you need considerations, what might be the classroom management techniques that you use to enable that to happen. And the last page is a planning guide for those of you that could really benefit, or maybe you have a colleague at school that was willing to dip a toe but needs some support in it. So you will have access to all of these later today. Next slide. Another way to think about engaging students in environmental stewardship is through your zero waste liaison lens. Those of you that are Get2Green leaders, one of your key responsibilities is as a zero waste liaison, and that's looked differently every year that we've had Get2Green leaders. Our main ask is that you communicate the policies and tools, resources that we have with your administration and school teams. Currently, we have 2 mandatory zero waste initiatives. The one for recycling has actually existed for a long time. It comes from our Joint Environmental Task Force. They set a goal that our school district would move to zero waste by 2030. We're 5 years away. And while that seems like a huge goal, we're not there yet. In the past year, Fairfax County schools have reduced their waste by 132,000 pounds. So the work that you are doing is making a real difference. Thinking about how we know that systems need to be in place. The custodial staff, teachers need to be on board, but really how might your students drive this action at the schools? How can they do an awareness campaign? How can they collaborate with custodians to make this work easier? I bet when you meet with your colleagues, they'll have some ideas in mind. Next slide. And the other initiative that is brand new this year is thinking about our cafeterias. They are the largest source of waste in our schools. And so this year, food share tables will be mandatory at every school. That's been communicated to schools in a number of ways. All administrators are required to go to their kind of back to school training called Leaders Need to Know. They were given the update at that time. Food and Nutrition Services is meeting at each school with each administrative team to talk to them about all the policies in the cafeteria, including these two big ones that we're hoping can really reduce waste. One is reinforcing the idea of offer, don't serve. So students do need to take 3 components or 2 components depending on the meal. But for example, milk is no longer a mandatory component. So students don't have to take milk. They don't have to take a fruit and a vegetable, for example. And so talking about the offer, don't serve. So hopefully students never put that food on their plate. But once they do, and they just weren't as hungry as they thought, how can we recover that food to both handle the food scarcity epidemic within our schools and also at area food banks? So food share tables can happen in 3 ways. One is non-perishable foods. If you're thinking about like the Cheez-It packages, they could just go in there. They can go to any student during the cafeterias, and that would be the whole program. The next level would be to get a refrigerator using your Get2Green funds or eliciting one from your community, a donation, and also collecting some of our perishables like the cheese sticks or yogurts or milk. And it being the same thing though, just students within your lunch having access to those things. The last level would be to take all of those leftovers at the end of the week and donate them to an area food bank. And there are regulations in place for each level of that and resources to support you in setting this up at your school. Now, the biggest question we've gotten from Get2Green leaders is, was my principal being told? And those meetings are still in the process of happening with Food and Nutrition Services. And then an actiongram is going to go out from Food and Nutrition Services. And after that time, we'll be able to share with you via our Schoology and the actual memo that's going out. So you and your administrator will have the same language and be able to sit down and look at it together and make a plan for how this might happen at your school. Next slide. And so remember, or if you're brand new, we have this zero waste toolkit. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. We had a massive summer curriculum development project, and many of you have added to this over time. This can set you up for success in all of these different areas of zero waste. And one that I want to highlight for this year that's new, if you've ever gone grocery shopping and forgot your reusable bags, you paid 5 cents for every bag that you needed to use. It's a Fairfax County bag tax. The money collected from that goes to a number of different environmental initiatives. One of them for this year is that our facilities friends were able to purchase a TerraCycle box, 1 per school, that will be distributed through the kickoffs, and then through, if we don't catch you at a kickoff, then we'll get it to you one way or another. But that will allow you to collect some of those hard to recycle items that we know show up during the school year, like markers and staplers and tape dispensers and binders, those kinds of things that end up in the trash can. You can load up your TerraCycle box. It already has a pre-ship label on it, and you just ship it off when it's full, and they'll give us back the data for how many pounds of waste were saved. Now, the bag tax is paying for 1 per school as a way for you to try it on. If you find that that program feels good, works well at your school, there are a number of different options on TerraCycle, which here it's linked in the, you can reuse almost anything. You can use your Get2Green funds, work with your students and let them choose which of the boxes would work best for your school community. Maybe your students eat all the Takis. There's a whole box for that. So you can really customize your zero waste adventure. Next page. And another resource that we have is the National Wildlife Federation Eco Schools program. This program is not mandatory, but it's a great way to direct your environmental stewardship efforts. There are supporting curricular resources within it, And it's a way to gain recognition for the amazing things you're doing at your schools. This year, Fairfax County earned 44 green flags, double what we earned last year. And that's out of only 108 given out nationwide. So you are really at the forefront of what environmental stewardship can look like at schools. On top of that, another 6 schools earned certificates on their way to the green flag. So this is really a way to show that the Get2Green program is making a difference in students' lives and on the planet. Right now, the NWF platform is down for summer maintenance. They're uploading some new cards. They're making those certification questions a little clearer and hopefully less repetitive. And it reopens August 10th. You'll be able to log in and see what the new cards are, make your plan again, and get started right in your environmental journey. And we will be updating those eco action cards. If that's something that you used, we've seen many green teams narrow down. There, I think, are going to be 56 cards total this year, and that's a lot of choice. So as the leader, you might narrow it down to 5 that you're interested in, and then let your students choose from those so they really have a voice in directing what action happens. Next slide. While the platform is not yet open, today you will have the opportunity to see this action card library. So a quick description of what each of the actions are going to be and which pathway it's affiliated with, along with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN that address each of those. So that has been updated for the upcoming school year, and you'll have a chance to dig into that. And there's going to be one made just for Fairfax County for those food share tables. So that should be one that every single person is able to fill out since it's a mandatory action anyway. Next slide. The last resource we want to highlight today, Karen talked about it earlier, is our lending library. It is reopened to sign out for the upcoming school year. And we have a coming soon kit. If you've ever had the opportunity to work with the stormwater group and use those little macroinvertebrate clear resin cubes to help bring the stream into your classroom, since we know we can't always get our students to the streams, they gave us several of those kits that you can check out and use with your students, along with the curriculum resources and those great dichotomous keys. So those will be adding to our lending library for this year. And next slide. So now we have about 7 minutes to chat in our teams before you have your breakout time work session. This is to connect again in those grade level bands, elementary, middle, and high school, with what great things are they doing with their student action? What innovative ways are they using their school ground? What challenges have they overcome in the past couple of years as they've done this Get2Green work? Again, try and limit the groups to around 5 so that everyone can have a voice. Thank you. I apologize, my screen setup froze. Next slide. So hopefully now you've had a lot of time to get some ideas, both from our speakers and from your colleagues in our breakouts. And we're going to spend the bulk of our remaining time together, about 30 minutes, in giving you some time to apply your learning. We've created this graphic organizer. You can see on the left side, thinking through those questions. We've also gone back and added links to anything that you saw today. So the eco action cards, the curriculum connections, that engagement toolkit will be there under each question to help you think through those things. Supporting resources, thinking about what you already have in place. In listening to some of you, you have lots already going on. So thinking about what good things are already happening. And then we invite you to think about this year, 2 to 3 years down the road, and 5 years down the road. What does it really look like? Because we recognize it gets exciting to try and do 20 projects at once. but it's better to choose one or two to do really well in the year and then think through till the next year. And then maybe next year we can expand into this. And then next slide. You'll have the opportunity to do this in the format that suits you best. If you prefer to dive into this on your own, we call that you can just stay in your own little cave. You can turn off the microphone, you can turn off your camera, and just keep an eye on that timer. We'll drop into the chat that graphic organizer, and you'll have about 30 minutes to just go at it on your own. There's also going to be several campfires that you can visit. There, each of the resource teachers will have one for their communities. There'll be one for facilities and gardening questions and outdoor learning. You can visit any of those campfires and talk to the experts there and ask them your questions, and you're welcome to pop back and forth between those that sort you. We know that some of you are here with a learning partner from your school or someone else that you'd like to work with, or you just prefer to have a thought partner. You can go to one of the watering holes. And if you'd like it to be just you and your partner, you can claim one watering hole. And then for others, if you just want to work together, you can pop into one and work with a bunch of just colleagues that are also Get2Green leaders. The graphic organizer is a force copy. So I know that we have gotten away from them in time, but it was the easiest way for us to share with you that information. And so you will make your own copy of it and then go into your watering hole of choice. We aren't going to drop all of the slides into the chat at this time. They will be available on Schoology afterward, though. So I invite you to make a copy, and then we will be opening these different breakout rooms, and you can choose how you learn best. And we'll come back together in about 30 minutes. And Allie, if you could start the timer before you pop into your campfire.
I'm going to have to stop sharing the slides to go into my campfire.
Okay, that's fine. I will I'm staying here in case anyone has questions or needs to be moved. So I will
Maybe just
send
broadcast.
5-minute warnings. Yep.
Okay, perfect. See you then.
Bye.
Yeah, I need you to take over the host so I can go to my room.
Okay. Now, host tools. Nope. You are the host now. Got it. And I'll send probably like a 15-minute warning and a 5-minute warning.
So I'm looking at the loan kits. I'm not sure what it is, but it doesn't give me access. It says ask permission. What
Are
are
you on
those?
your FCPS account?
Yeah, I should be. From my
Let me
FCPS
double check
computer.
on my end.
See where where did the thing go?
Oh, you are right. I don't know how that happened. All right,
Okay.
that is updated. Thank you.
Okay, let me check if it's. Oh yeah, now it's good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Mm.